Hello and welcome to the Chidliak blog. There was a recent release that was pretty material to the project, and that was the bulk sample results from CH7. Now the press release that Baffin Diamonds issued goes into a lot of detail, and if you take things at face value, you're probably going to miss parts of it. So I thought I would just go over the press release bit by bit and maybe help explain some of the things, at least explain to myself to justify what we're looking at, but also to help anyone else who is listening. So we start at the top. This was released on January 12th of this year. So from today, that was about 9 days ago. So the headline is Baffin reports CH7 bulk sample diamond grade of 0.88 carats per ton. So you'll see that up there. So that's number one. That's the first thing that the reader will see. But that is a very dry result based on the exact results coming from a lab in Saskatchewan. So it really doesn't exactly tell you the whole story. But on the face of it, if there was some expectations maybe that it should be higher, but when you read the news release, it actually is higher than that. So it's hard to just look at that and go, oh, it's bad news. You have to really deep dive into the article. So that's number one. Number two, with that grade, that's just a grade of all the parcels that were submitted. There was tonnage from different domains within CH7. And the ratio of what was bulk sampled versus what the tonnage ratio in reality on the ground is going to be different. So you can't just take 0.88 carats per ton as an average grade anyway. You have to weight it by tonnage. And then on top of that, well, where are those tons? Are they closer to the surface or deeper down? Is the higher grade stuff closer to surface? That'll affect your net present value of the project. So some things like this are not just looked at when you're just looking at 0.8 carats per ton. So the next line, they talk about 814 dry ton bulk sample. So where is this important is previous news release says that they've been transporting about 550 tons, give or take, of material to the lab. So how did we get from 550 tons to 814 dry tons? The 550 around tons was also wet tons, so in reality that would have reduced to even a smaller amount. The trick here is that they actually were looking, if you look at lower down, you'll see that there's a 1.18 millimeter sieve size that they were looking at. That's the any stones less than 1.18 millimeters is not really relevant to the valuations that they want to get out of this. They want to look at macro diamonds, not micro diamonds. So on that point of view, when they actually did the large diameter drilling on site, they actually decided to leave any material that was under 1.18 millimeters in size, which basically is just a little square. Anything that falls through it will stay on site. Anything that stays on top of it will go to the lab. So in addition to dropping some small diamonds below that through the sieve, you also get rid of just a lot of material, kimberlite material, through that. So they have to figure out densities and wetness, dryness, and then they actually have to calculate how do you get from 550 tons to 814 tons of dry material. So obviously the scientists at the company followed a QA QC procedure and have come up with that. So that's what we're looking at. They were originally trying to get 1,000 tons was the original goal, so they got pretty close. When they released the 550 tons value, I think a lot of people were disappointed that they didn't get anywhere close, but in the end they actually did. They did quite a bit of tonnage. So then you get to the next one. A total of 717.65 carats of that size were recovered. So again, that's just coming from the lab, and again, this is purely a lab result. 53 of those diamonds were 1 carat or larger, and 183 diamonds were over half carat in size. So the larger the size, the coarser the distribution, potentially the higher the valuation per carat, also dependent on the quality itself. So the next one is the largest gem quality diamond recovered was a 5.33 carat white colorless octahedron with no inclusions. So this is significant in the fact that does this deposit, this kimberlite deposit, produce high quality stones or diamonds? And obviously it does. Compared to the flagship CH6, it produced a bigger stone, an 8.87, but that had minor inclusions. So technically this would be the largest stone that has no inclusions found at Chidliak to date. So that's going to be the highest value stone when they do the valuations. So that is good, and that's no inclusions basically is what it says. There has been some press out there that I've seen that say flawless, but there is actually a distinction between no inclusions and flawless, and I don't think the lab or the company are going to distinguish those. Maybe the valuation expert might, and maybe you only get flawless after it's been polished and cut down the line. We're just talking about rough diamond valuations here. So now next up is significant diamond breakage was observed. So this is pretty significant into not just looking at the above numbers as just base value numbers. There's definitely details beneath them that need to be uncovered to totally understand what is going on here. So they have a whole section as indicated here talking about it. And what does it say? Including a gem quality diamond that may have originally been larger than 6 carats. So we'll talk about the breakage later, but the information out there that I've read in other reports and also later on here is that the higher quality, the clear stones have a tendency to be most going toward that breakage, and the other stones that are opaque and gray and brown are less likely to break. So you can see how that has a significant impact on the results. A substantial portion of the parcel is gem quality diamonds. That's great news for evaluation. And a population of colored stones is present. So they say colored stones. So that is also important in the valuation as well. I'm not sure what the valuation expert will infer from that, but that is up to the valuation, which will be done in Antwerp, overseas in Europe. So processing was done at the SRC in Saskatchewan, and as it says, an independent valuation will occur in Belgium. So I assume the diamonds are probably already sent on their way under secure protocol, and they're going to do not only do a actual price on the parcel itself, but also give it a model of, in a production setting, what could it look like. Okay, so then they go on to diamonds of special note. So these are not necessarily the largest, a list of the largest diamonds, but obviously the largest diamonds with great quality is what they want to list here. So the first one, again, 5.33, great. Second one, again, you're looking at octahedron being the best shape you want. Clear white is better than off-white, but off-white is pretty good as well. And then minor or no inclusions is what you want to see. The third one is an off-white transparent mackerel. It's more of a triangle type shape. As long as it's gem quality, it will still have good value, but not as good as the octahedron. And then you have this other one that they included, even though it's one of the not in the top 5 or I even think top 10 stones for size, but it's a white colorless transparent octahedron with no inclusions. So again, that's the same one as the top one. It's just smaller, but it'll generate quite a bit of value. And now of note here, they talk about 2 yellow transparent octahedra at basically a half carat each. So they wanted to make note of that because they talked about colored stones above. The light yellow stones are not as valuable, but the deeper shades you get, the more interesting you get. Now you can go to the photos and look at gems. Those are very important, and we'll get to that. But let's just move on down the release. Here's some bulk sample information. So these are just broken up into the different sieve sizes and number of stones and the carats and the domains. Kim 2 we knew was going to be a little bit lower grade. It's coming about at 0.76. and so on. So again, you take these at face value, but you're probably missing out on the picture. Kim 5 was showing significantly higher carat count than it shows here, and they reference that as being an unexplained anomaly right now. But then again, you see during diamond recovering sorting, a high level of diamond breakage was identified. So again, to get a population curve on this to try to portray how coarse the distribution is a little bit flawed, because some of your larger diamonds of gem quality diamonds have some broken, have been broken in certain areas. So you have chips that fall down into the lower sieves, or worse yet, you have chips that have stayed on site because they fell through the 1.18 sieve on site. So you're not even getting your total carat count here. So this data is, some would say, conservative, but I prefer the term underreported, because they know there is stuff missing. So that's not really being conservative, that's just you're underreporting. You know it's going to be bigger than that. You know it's going to have more data than that. CEO said it was excellent outcome. Obviously the whole staff there is very academically inclined and can look past the face value and understand that diamond breakage is part of the process, and can look at, well, what do the real results mean when you take all that into account. They're looking at a resource statement, so that's going to be tonnage and grade update to the inferred category. Talks about a bit of the process. Well, of note, the Kim 5 has an unusual grease repellent coating, which is really interesting. So basically, they talk about grease repellent coatings, but basically the way it normally is explained is that diamonds are very water repellent. So you put your diamonds and your other little bits of kimberlite, and you put them in a grease table, and then you soak them full of water. The diamonds will preferably stick to the grease because the water just kind of goes over them, whereas that water pressure and that water is going to drive all the other stuff. So the fact that the water is also pushing a lot of the Kim 5 diamonds away into where you don't want it to. You want it to stick to the grease so you can easily take them apart and put them in the parcel. So they had to do a bit of additional caustic on some of the material that came off the grease table, just to get that. And of course that's probably going to be the smaller size diamonds, because of the really large diamonds they probably already handpicked off in some of the X-ray processes early on and such. So they, as part of QC, they put in some laser marked diamonds, and they came back unbroken at 100% recovery rate. So during the DMS processing, there is some crushing going on, reprocessing, going through all that. So they know that the DMS processing itself did not create the breakage. So the assumption then is the breakage happened on site when they were moving it from the ground. So then we get a size distribution. And again, the caveat is with all this breakage study that they've done, that these are a little bit going to be out of whack. So your size distribution, the bigger stones the better. Greater than 3 carats, they found 7 stones. But we know that these again probably underreported, because we know that because the breakage report, which we'll get to. Diamond shape. So this is great news. 45% octahedral. That's what you want to see. Now I don't know if this is by stone or by carat count, because if some of the broken stones are octahedral, then actually if it's by carat count, that number could increase. And you look at it, says 55% of these stones over 1 carat. I don't know if it's over by 1 carat or if it's the entire parcel. 55% were unbroken, which means 45% had either some breakage in it, or actually the whole stone just broke in multiple pieces. So you can see where this can be problematic. And if you actually look at that, you'll actually know that actually if you look at it in the coloring scheme. So the coloring, so white, colorless, off-white, You want these numbers to be as high as possible, gray brown as low as possible, and yellow or other colors questionable, depending on the quality and on what hues they have. But back to the broken question. So if you have 55% white or off-white, and chances are these are more of the gem quality, and 45% broken, which tend to lean toward the white, off-white, then and then you take this out, then actually, and you assume that these yellow and gray brown do not break or do not have breakage, then you're actually looking at 77% of your gem quality or white and off-white population has damaged. So that number will come up a little bit later as well. But you can see that if that has breakage and we've lost volume in there, that actually inflates the 41%, which we don't want, and underinflates or deflates these numbers. So again, this is the white and the off-white are probably underreported, and the gray and brown are probably overreported. Okay. And then we got a couple sayings, quotes from our independent, from Peregrine's independent QP. So a lot of these quotes and opinions can come from the independent people versus the actual company. The company has to really watch out what they say, because these independent are experts and they're allowed to share their opinions. So there we got a mix of diamonds assortment from pristine gems to industrial quality, white colorless to off-white, clean octahedra, somewhat distorted or modified resorption is minor, giving the parcel a significant portion of high-value solubles extending into the largest sizes. So that means that a soluble is basically what you want to see, because that's where you can eventually get a polished diamond, and that's where all the values will lie. A small population of clean gem yellow octahedra may prove important. So that's just a little footnote, and we'll see that when we look at the photos. Now we get to diamond breakage. So they actually had to go out and hire an independent diamond breakage expert. So diamond breakage reports are actually very common for this type of assessment. Before we step here, it really hasn't explained why this happens and where this happens, but basically they have a large diameter drill, reverse circulation with it's like a tricone with a pipe down the middle, and the dry cone digs deep in the ground, and then whatever it breaks up kind of gets sucked up into the hollow pipe in the middle, and that gets sent up, and you end up with like RC chips or reverse circulation chips. So it's more of a chip as opposed to just a core, and that's where they figure the breakage happens. Now in here you'll see that the 75 to 90% of the diamonds were damaged. So that kind of correlates to the 77% I mentioned above. So that, again, that's going to be pretty much in your white and your off-white population. And this is well over double that is typically found for large drill programs. So they went and they looked at 74 pieces or things that they could do and try to make diamonds together. So they're looking at plus 0.66 carat diamonds, but probably they want to get like how many 1+ carat diamonds can you make out of it. So they were successful, partially successful in 43 of 74 attempts. So that's when they can start getting a number. So they basically said that 10 to 40% loss of carat weight is due to this breakage, and that material is now on site in a sump, they say. So 10 to 40% again. So we have a huge range here. So why do we have ranges? 75 to 90%, 10 to 40%. Well, one is they can't find an exact number, but another one is when they release this and disclose this to the public, the reporting guidelines, they are to try to give a range when you're not exactly sure exactly what it is. So they're just basically, they don't want to get in trouble for reporting something too narrow, so that's why you get a huge discrepancy, 10 to 40%, a big range. But you can see a 40% loss of carat. What do you think that's going to do to your 0.88 carat per ton? You're talking about increasing the grade by up to 40%. which is going to get you over 1 carat per ton, which is what previous results we're kind of looking at. So in that way, this bulk sample could be construed as a success. So it talks about it being predominantly in the drilling, and then again it talks about, this is pretty key, the breakage is observed to have specifically shattered high-quality gem or near gemstones with few internal flaws, and which would have occurred in the 2 carat and greater size ranges. So not only does it affect your grade, your carat per ton, but now you're looking at diamonds that could be few inclusions and larger stones. That totally affects your coarse distribution and your valuation that comes out of it. So now you're thinking, oh, what are they going to do? And they specifically mentioned one that they partially reconstructed to have a weight over 6 carats based on the observation of the diamond fragments. And they're referring to it as having probably minor inclusions on it. So you can see the largest, highest quality stone might actually have been broken. So they're going to look at what possibly the changes they can make on site if they're going to use the RC drill in the future. And then we have the expert giving his one of the opinions, and he says the reported grade of 0.88 grades is conservative and a higher grade is expected. So again, he's using conservative. I would use underreported, but maybe they're not allowed to use that. And further is my belief that a number of gem quality diamonds 2 carats or largest have been shattered, very important, which will have a negative impact on the valuation of this parcel. However, diamond price modeling that takes this into account should result in an increased model price valuation that would be more realistic in a mining scenario. So the valuator is going to create a model, and the model is going to take into account this breakage has happened, and is basically going to try to undo the breakage. And not only that, in a sample of this size, it doesn't play the fact that you're going to have larger stones in a mining scenario. So the evaluator is going to take into account this breakage, kind of undo it, and then also predict that there will be bigger stones of size, and add that into the valuation model. So those are 2 things. The problem is now you say it will have a negative impact, and the reader's going, oh, this cannot be good. This is all bad news. But I don't know if I would change that to say the valuation model will positively be impacted by taking into account the breakage data. But the actual parcel, if you're looking at a bunch of broken stones and the person's going to give what if I wanted to buy all these broken stones? What's the value? Of course it's going to be lower because it's broken stones. But he's going to pretend they're not broken, or she's going to pretend they're not broken, and try to figure out, well, are there other stones missing that should be in this, and go from there. So the valuation model could be significantly, and it will be significantly higher than the actual. The question is, how higher is it? So again, it talked about more breakage study. Okay, and then it talked about previous work that's done on the program. They did some core drilling last year, and that drilling was actually interpreted as having better grade and better content than previous drilling to CH7. And now they're saying that the bulk sample has now confirmed it. So they've taken into account the breakage study and the grades, and say that it's comparable to what they expected. So that is good. They talked about Kim 5 again, which is the much higher grade, but they say it's actually not a huge chunk of it. So I don't know how much work will be done on it. It was potentially up to 4 carats per ton, which is one of the highest grade expectations in the world. And then we have one of the company's representative saying that he's excited to have the grades close to 1 carat per ton amongst all the domains. So I guess it just makes it easier for resource extraction scenarios. I don't really understand that. Having Kim 3 and Kim 4 or whatever be a little bit higher grade, that's great news. And those are actually in the top proportion of the ore body, so that's fine. If it's variable, great. Diamond valuations. So they're going to send the parcel plus also up to 50 carats that they completed on a surface sample that they did. So they do have some comparison. They did the RC drilling with the breakage. They did the surface sample of 50 tons of clean stones that didn't have the breakage. So, and then they have all the micro diamond results from all the previous core samples. So the data set's getting bigger and bigger, and they can start now comparing stuff. So that is good. And that they just reference that larger stones that could be in a production scenario are not in this size of a parcel, so that will be included in the evaluation. Now beyond that, the valuation also looks at the colors and the actual stones, so we can look at the photos themselves. And it talks about the pipe. So it has a TFFE, which is a tonnage for future exploration, and it talks about coming in at 3.72 to 6.01 million tons of kimberlite down to 290 meters depth. So now we got a range again. So the 3.72 is stuff that they're pretty certain is there, and then the remaining is they're not quite certain. Now the problem with this is that when I read that, I think, you know, a kimberlite pipe is vertical, and you're gonna maybe not know the extents and the boundaries of the kimberlite. So you think the 3.72 is going to be more in the core, and then as you expand out, that's where you get the 6.01 million tons. But that is not the case at all. And I will show you. There's a diamond from the bulk sample. We'll get there. So now the problem with this range is when you assume that, when you think of a core and then expand it, because, you know, finding the boundaries of a kimberlite pipe is pretty critical to what you want to do. But here's an image of what it is. They're talking about the 3.72 is actually the top 130 meters or whatever, 160 meters that they're very confident about for that range of study or parameter, and then the remaining up to 6 million tons is below that. So, you know, not knowing the outside of the boundary, and if you're thinking of the core to the outside, you're thinking, well, it could be really smaller or it could be bigger. But when you look at this, you're thinking, well, it's 3.72, and then you know the pipe is going to extend into the ground. It might thin out a bit, or it might get bigger. So you know, you're not just going to be on that lower end of the range. You're actually probably going to be more at the higher range end of that range as well. And they're targeting 250 meters. So this 6 million is what they say is down to 290 meters. So they're targeting probably 5 to 5.5 million tons is what they want to see out of that, to get somewhere down to here. So that's pretty critical, but just reading it again, reading at face value, 3.72 to 6.01 million tons, you're thinking, well, if they're not interpreting it right and they're kind of just overestimating, they're going to come up with 3.72 million tons, but that's not the case. You really need to dig into the details to really understand it. Now, it talks about CH6, which is the flagship product, pipe, I should say. And they have results from core drilling from last year that is going to add 1 to 1.2 million tons, which is 2.5 to 3.1 million carats. So you're thinking, oh, it's just an addendum. They're going to add, you know, a few million carats to an existing 8.57 million carats. Does it sound like a lot? You know, 20, 30%, whatever the math is, maybe 40%. But when you think of the valuation of CH6, 1 million tons, if it gets up to $500 or $600 per ton, is $500 or $600 million. So this small addendum that they include in these releases is not insignificant. 500 to 600 million tons. When you think of the potential capital for the project to build a mine, could be as low as 400 million. It could be 800 or 900 million. While this add-on that they're talking about could pay for all the upfront capital of the project. And then you have the remaining, the original 8.57 million carats plus CH7 to generate positive cash flow for the life of the mine. So don't take that lightly. That is extremely important. And if they can add another 500,000 or 1 million tons next year, that even fattens up the net present value by that much more. It's a big step up. They're talking about a maiden inferred resource that they're talking about. They need the valuation to do that and all the grade and tonnage analysis. And then you go there, and then it talks about who's signing off and about. So then now we went through the release, so why don't we look at some of the diamonds. So this is the flagship diamond, the 5.33 carat diamond. So you can see this is no inclusions in there. You can't tell, obviously, because you need a little microscope. But there it is. And then we can look at other one, and they specify which domain that came from. So this came from kimberlite 2. You see a macle up there. You can see octahedrons there, and then you can start seeing some obvious signs of breakage up here, maybe down there. Even this yellow stone here has some breakage. So it's just a little, pretty rough that some of these stones went through. And these are just the lightly broke ones. The ones that broke in fragment, they're not going to actually necessarily highlight. We'll just go through some of the stones here again. They do highlight a yellow one here, which is an octahedron. These are roughly the same diamonds from the previous shot, but these are the stones that you want to see, octahedron. And these are 2+ carat type stones that we're looking at. And this one's from Kim 2 again, just another shot of some of the same diamonds. A lot of companies will not highlight too many diamonds, but this company does, and you'll see later they actually highlight some of the lower quality diamonds as well, so you can get a bit of a ratio. I like this photo. They kind of got a little bit creative. You get the big 5.33 stone. This is from domain 4, which is one of the higher grade ones. And then you got this. So you got to think these two up here maybe were fragments of something bigger that broke. You're getting a little bit of coloring here, but what you see here is you're getting a lot of the deep yellow hues, and this is why they even mentioned it. If it was just this light yellow, they wouldn't have even mentioned it in the press release. But you're getting here, and then you're getting a different shade of yellow. So if you can get gem quality fancy yellow, that could add significant value to the project as well. But obviously, you want to see the clear ice like diamonds is what you really want to see to get good valuation. So again, here's some yellow stones over here. I don't know, it could be a little bit of breakage there. But it's nice to see that they have a pristine stone without breakage, so that you can show that the deposit does generate some very significant high-valued stones. This is Kim 4 again. I like this photo of the diamond because you can clearly start seeing it, the transparency in it. You can see how clear it is. And again, you have these little colors here, and we'll get to that. But those two, there is a class of diamonds that some of the browns lead into what's called pink brown. They obviously are not at the point where they can call something pink, because anything pink does have a huge value. Again, the deeper the pink or even red, it has enormous value per carat. Like you can have a little tiny stone worth millions of dollars. But even light pink does have a premium on it. So you can see they do have that here, and then they have a couple of the yellow stones as well. There's some more on Kim 4, and you can really highlight the deep yellow. There's another company that came up with a bunch of deep yellows earlier this year, and they thought they were going to get huge hundreds of dollars per carat, but they were mostly aggregates or cubics. So they really didn't have the right shape, and they weren't really ready to be polished into very valuable diamonds. So they actually came up with a very low valuation. So ideally, you want to have this clear ice octahedron type shape is number one, and if you can get some deep yellows as a side byproduct, great. You might be able to get a little bit extra dollars from those. Here's another just selection from Kim 4. We've seen those. So you can see possibly some more fragments over here. Like that one totally looks like it was broken at some point. So there's a lot of work that's going into this breakage report that they're doing. And here we have a section of 0.11 carat diamonds. Again, these are the nice clear diamonds, so they're showcasing that. Oh, and here's a zoomed up view. So you can see there's a little bit of coloration of some sort in there. Just on the surface it looks like. It doesn't actually look like it's internal to the stone. But that's a nice stone as well. Yeah. So here they actually highlight the ratio between the nice clear white off white. Then you get into the grays and the browns, and then you get the yellows. So they tried to group it, and what I've noticed is the deeper grays and browns they've kind of grouped over here. These look like more of the grays, and then this is a mixture. You actually get a good size right there. So statistically, you're gonna if you can show you get larger sizes. Sometimes they're going to be gem quality. Sometimes they're going to be the gray brown, which some refer to as bort. But as you come down to the left here on the side, you're getting brown, but it's you're almost bleeding into that pink brown. So I'm wondering if they just did that on purpose. It's becoming a little bit clearer, less opaque as you get down there, and we'll see that going forward as well. Okay, so here we go with another photo. You get the yellows on the side, and you get the nice stone there. And over here on the right, again, you're seeing that kind of could be brown, could be a little bit of pink in there. And then in the back, you can actually see that's clearly brown there. But that actually looks like a stone. You can see a little bit of light to it. So it actually might be a makeable or a soluble a brown as well. You portray it as one of those chocolate diamonds that they try to sell. But that's not obviously what you're looking for at this time. You really want the flagship clear as ice stones, octahedron. So here's a nice photo of one of the domains, just showing again the assortment that you're comparing to. And again, yellows, off-white, clear ice, white, and then you get the bort. And again, because we're missing some volume in these diamonds, and possibly missing some diamonds altogether that should be made into a single diamond, the other stones might be a little bit overweighted here than what reality actually shows. And there's assortment. You get the nice high quality stuff right down the middle, and these are what makes the difference for the valuation coming up. Here's a nice photo. You get a nice little yellow octahedron there, but they've also put that deep yellow over there on the left, and then they faded this. You can see it goes from clear white to off white, and kind of that light brown, maybe a little bit of pink, to the browns, to the grays. They faded away, so they've definitely sorted this appropriately. And now we get to a broken stone, and this is a deep yellow one, and they figure these 4 stones all belong to a single diamond. So the largest being 2.35 carats. So you can imagine putting this all together, you might get 4 carat stone maybe out of it just by looking at it. Maybe larger, maybe smaller, but you're getting definitely a yellow color, and you can see kind of really deepen where the fractures occurred. You're getting almost crushed. It looks like white there. Obviously, you don't want to do this if you're going to cut this stone. This is not the way to do it. But this is part of the problems with the breakage study. And we're back to the original one. So we'll go back to the press release, because I don't know if we talk about all the diamond stuff. Yeah, we did. But this is really the key part. If you're taking the 0.88 carat per ton face value, you're really missing it. For one, the breakage clearly shows that there should actually be more volume, more carats. Number 2, where you want larger stones, more octahedral, and more white colorless and off-white to generate a higher valuation. With the breakage of that class of stone, you're not going to get that with an actual value of parcel. So the valuation model is absolutely key, and could absolutely surprise on the upside with this breakage report study that they're working on that will go to the evaluator. and we'll see what we get. But there's going to be definitely a significant variance between the actual parcel value and the model value. And usually with the model value, they come in with a minimum, a base value, and a maximum. So this, looking at this range and the sizes per parcel of carats, CH7 actually creates a coarser, larger number of stones than CH6. CH6 is the flagship. It creates much greater number of high quality, that gem ice stone, and came out with a parcel value of $200 US per carat. So whether CH7 can get to that point is to be determined. And I think basically the valuation model on how much coarse diamonds gets there is going to play a key. Because if CH7 can create 4, 5 carat stones out of 1,000 carats that are of high value, and CH7 can create 8 4+ carat stones out of the same parcel size. 4 of them are bort or gray brown, but the other 4 are high value. Then you can start seeing that it might actually be on a similar playing field. CH7 has a much higher grade, much higher rock value, and will absolutely be mined first. And that'll be the first few years of the mine life if this gets into a mine. But CH7 was important to extend the life of mine and to show that the diamond district is robust. You have a diamond district with over 70 plus known kimberlites, of which 40 plus are known to contain diamonds, and you also have many opportunities to drill and find kimberlites, new kimberlite pipes. So their main goal is to confirm that there is a feasible mine. So the next step after the valuation is a PEA, which is a preliminary economic assessment, and that's just the next stage. Once they do that, they can do some more drilling in 2016 and try to toughen up or bulk up the NPV and do another PEA or move on to a PFS study. Once they get to the PEA, diamond mining is very hard to understand. There's so much technical to it. Like this breakage study doesn't really happen in any other commodity. So again, taking this as face value is hard to do. I mean, taking it at face value is easy to do, but actually learning what's underneath it is hard to do. So PEA will sort of put this on the same playing field for investors to look at and compare with other PEAs that are out there with this one. So that's good news. That might bring in some more investors because basically the CH6, you're looking at a huge profit margin with a grade of 2.58, evaluation of $200. You're looking at $500 or $600 per ton, and if it costs you $100 or less, you're thinking you're generating $400 or $500 to the cash flow of the project. CH7, again, if you're getting over 1 carat per ton and you're getting over $100 per carat, then you're creating some profit margin that'll go into the study. So, but it depends on how much over $100 per carat can you get if it reaches that, and then also what with the breakage study, what carat per ton can they disclose? Like, how are they going to do that? That's up to the QPs, which is the qualified persons who are experts and usually have. Sometimes you can have 5 or 10 years of experience, but a lot of them that you go to have 20, 30, even 40 years of experience. So a lot of them have tons of experience and know exactly what they're talking about. So that's a brief deep dive into the press release. Again, if you're just taking it at face value and you're thinking, oh, this is a negative result, you're probably missing out. But stay tuned for valuations, but most important is the PEA. And that'll come out sometime late in the first half 2016. The valuations probably will take a month or two to come out of Antwerp, Belgium, and I'm very interested to see what results they have. Anyway, this has been just a brief review of that, and I'll be posting this on YouTube, as well as a link on the Chidliak blog, which is right here. That's chidliak.blogspot.ca or chidliak.blogspot.com. Either one will work. And there's a whack of information taken from technical reports, press releases, etc. that you can find here. I'm also I'll do a Twitter account, so that's at Ecom Diamonds, that you can find as well. So I'll be tweeting this YouTube video as well. Anyway, until the next bit of news comes out, that'll be it. I thought a video explaining this in audio was way more better than just trying to get this down on paper. They've done a press release, but there's so much stuff to it, so that's why I kind of went that way. Anyway, have a good weekend, and maybe I'll see some of you at Roundup or another conference somewhere coming up. Thank you.